Cool. Well, it is 3:00. I think, Britt, if you don't mind letting me know, do you see any people who aren't here yet? Should we wait a minute, or do you feel good starting?
Let me just take a peek. I think we are good.
Okay. Hey, folks, this is Jessica. I'm logged in as Larry.
As IC production.
As IC production, actually. But I'm here, but I'm in the car. So I'm going to let you two drive, symbolically speaking. Is that okay?
Of course. Yes.
Okay, great.
Are you seeing the slides, or are you seeing my entire presenter mode here?
We're seeing your entire presenter mode.
Okay,
yeah.
let me switch that.
Okay.
Oh, good. And Jocelyn's here. That's awesome. Now we see just the slide. So you're good.
All right.
Okay. Well, to be respectful of time, I am going to start out by introducing our amazing visitor today, who is going to be speaking about Fulbright applications. So without any further ado, I'm going to read just a little bio for Alex. In China, Alex completed an artist residency in ceramics and studied ink painting at the China Academy of Art. He was drawn to the aesthetic of Chinese art and sought to learn from the mastery of the Chinese ceramic medium. The primary material of his current practice, that is the primary material of current practice. The ink painting courses he studied helped him to understand and use space, line, and form in the 2- and 3-dimensional realms more effectively, while the new environment enhanced his art with fresh forms and content. Alex graduated with an MFA in ceramics at University of California, Los Angeles. And so without any further ado, Alex, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here, and I'm excited to share about the Fulbright program and my experience within it with all of you, and also hoping to answer all your questions that I can about arts Fulbrights in general. It's a little different than the standard academic Fulbright, but you know, it's all the same goals and different approaches to the same end. So as Ellen mentioned, I graduated from UCLA in 2018 with my MFA in ceramics, and I graduated from Swarthmore College with a BA in studio art and Chinese. I applied in my senior year. I guess I should just move forward because you can see a little more of my bio visually there. So I graduated from Swarthmore College with a BA in studio art and Chinese. I applied at the end of my senior year, at the very beginning of my senior year, and started during the summer following my junior year working on that application. I mentioned that because it's really important to start that as soon as you're sure that you want to go for it. So when you decide that you want to be a Fulbright scholar, then it's a great idea to start working on those statements that we'll talk about later, getting those affiliations, but we'll get into more of those details later. As the slide mentions, I was really interested in focusing on traditional techniques that were specific to China. When I was in my fall of my junior year, I studied abroad in Jingdezhen, China, which is the porcelain capital of China, and some might say of the world. There's kind of this competition between France and Sèvres and Hermès porcelain, things like that. And then Jingdezhen, China being I think of that as being more the origin of everything. So I studied abroad there for 3.5 months. And when I left, I just knew that I wasn't done. There was so much more to explore with the medium. I started to see just the beginning of the full potential that it could access creatively and artistically and expressively. So I knew I had to go back. And that's why I focused my entire Fulbright on China, and then on Hangzhou, and then on the China Academy of Art, and then on this specific program. And so it's great to be, and really important to be as specific as possible from that top-down approach. So region, country, city, university, professor, if you can. The more specific you can be, the stronger your application will be. Here again, studying the full potential of the ceramic medium. That was, I had a lot of open studio time just to continue to develop my skills, but also to build my portfolio for graduate school that I later used to apply to UCLA. And one of the things that my professor mentioned was, he's like, well, you have an interesting background. That's part of why I picked you, in addition to the technical skill. And so all of these things came from the Fulbright. And he was mostly interested in my status as a Fulbright scholar. lastly, it's that immersive studio time was just the most wonderful gift. You're funded by the State Department. They tell you that basically what you're doing is valid. You have this kind of stamp of approval on your practice moving forward. And it's a fully funded program. It's an international exchange program. We also want to stress that it's not a study abroad program or a gap year. It's more, it's actually a US governmental exchange fellowship that uses academic scholarship, and arts fall into that category very much. We think of arts as being academic, even though they are, of course, more studio-based, but they are, of course, an intellectual endeavor. So we approach it that way. And it's using scholarship as ambassadorship. So you're sharing ideas to create, this is the slogan of the Fulbright Taiwan program is a little more understanding, a little less conflict. And so the idea is that by exchanging ideas, we're creating stronger bonds with our allies and helping us understand as individuals mutually, both in our host countries and in ourselves, more about just human condition at large. At least that's how I saw it from the artist perspective. My community engagement, it can really be anything that you are interested in. Some people will join sports teams that are allowing them to engage with the communities. I was just hanging out with all the other artists who were there, and that was wonderful to have that perspective. What is it like to be an artist in China? What is art pedagogy like in China? It's very different from how we study and make art in the West. And those are things that you'll experience broadly and uniquely per space. I'll move forward. So program goal, I don't like to read the slides, but this one, it's a little quote, so I will read that. Our mission is to foster mutual understanding between nations, advance knowledge across communities, and improve lives around the world. Exactly kind of what I was talking about before. It's about scholarship, sharing ideas, and learning that our perceptions of anything is probably not entirely grounded in reality. We have imaginaries surrounding countries, but once we live there, we really get a stronger sense of reality. People often ask me, what's it like to be an American? What's it like to study art in America? We have those conversations that were always really interesting as a point of exchange. But there's also this idea that shifted around, what does an American look like? Well, I'm not tall, white, blue eyes. I do have blonde hair, but it's not the standard American image that they expected. And so a cat. Having a broader understanding of what our demographics here look like was also something that I think was beneficial and interesting to the members of my host institution. It was created in 1946 by a bill that was signed into order by Senator William J. Fulbright, and that's after whom it's named. It was sponsored by the U.S. Department of State, and that continues to be sponsored by the U.S. Department of State and administered by the Institute of International Education. Okay, he really wants to be involved. This is what my classes are like all day. Don't mind the cat. So it's mostly a governmental exchange program that gives you the ability to study something that falls directly within your interests, develop that interest, explore the depths of knowledge that you can find in this country. And you want this to be a line of study that can only be done in that space, because then the question comes up, well, why do you want to do it there if you could do this in any American city? And so it has to be something that could only take place in our host country. And it's often beneficial for you to have some knowledge, if not fluency, in the language of the target country. I'll also offer that the countries that are English speaking can be more challenging to access, and countries that have critical languages, which at the time for when I applied were Chinese, Arabic, and I think Russian as well. Those are going to be, they like to push us toward those directions. Now, I'm not telling you how to beat the Fulbright game necessarily, but those are things to consider as you apply. We want a range of scholars from a range of backgrounds. And again, when I mentioned there's that element of what does an American look like, what is an American scholar, and how I was a bit of a surprise when they saw me, we're looking for people from every possible background to represent the broad diversity that America represents in its own right. So our ambassadors, we want them to be a real reflection of American culture and whatever that means for you, because we're all part of that landscape. There's a larger thing here, but it's the standard DEI, no discrimination, it's for everyone. Basically what I'll say is Fulbright is literally for everyone. If you have a deep interest that can only happen in that space, then it's the right place and you're the right person for it. We also don't have, another thing that comes up often is GPA. There's no GPA requirement, but there is we like to see a focus on, or the reviewers like to see a focus on having done scholarship that relates directly to your project. So, and if not, like some degree of preparation toward being able to execute your project effectively. So language study, if you're, if you're going to do art, is always great because you'll need to be able to communicate. My Chinese got way better doing art critiques. At first it was really a lot of struggling through these, abstract poetic language around what I was making and why. But then your Chinese or whatever language you choose to study will really, really elevate as you are able to do that more and more effectively. Another thing to note is if you say you thought you were going to do something and it didn't work out, but you ended up doing your Fulbright in something that you really found yourself in. If you're studying art and you took and you thought you were going to be pre-med and you failed all of those organic chemistry classes, they don't care. So that's also important. I will share that I was planning on being an investment banker and I got a D- in econometrics, and that changed that. They don't like that. JP Morgan isn't interested, but Fulbright is. So and that's, it's those paths that kind of reveal themselves to you over time based on kind of just where your life goes. But I didn't have any D- or anything other than A's in art. Not that they care, but the idea is really the focus on you finding success and demonstrating continued and consistent success within your chosen field that you're going to make your project around in your target country. So your eligibility, you have to have a BFA by the BFA or BA or BS by the time you are going to be in your target country. That doesn't mean that you have to have one when you apply. So I applied in the fall of my senior year. I got the Fulbright in May of my senior year, and then I went the following March. So of course I had the degree by then, but it was more anticipatory when I applied. Recent graduates, graduate students, graduating seniors, early career professionals, including creative and performing artists and musicians. When we talk about the early career, that's the only thing there that's a point of distinction is really the fact that you would be in the student or scholar program based on your artistic level. So if you're an emerging artist or if you're in art school, graduating from art school, early career, you're only eligible for the student program. If you have been a practicing artist, if you're Jeff Koons and you want a a Fulbright, which I would be shocked, but he would be in the scholar program because he's an established artist. And then the mid-career also can sometimes be placed in either category depending on your choice and where they think is most appropriate for you. And sometimes those determinations are made by the reviewers after the fact, but usually you would choose initially the level that you think is most appropriate for you because you know yourself better than anyone else. You have to be a US citizen by the application deadline. So again, not when you apply, but by the time the deadline closes. For me, it was October 17th and my institutional deadline was September 9th. So that was in 2012. So often there's an institutional deadline that's just a month or so before so that your fellowships and prizes advisor, if you have one, is able to edit and review your documents with you to make them the strongest they can be so that you can be the strongest candidate you can be. No doctorate at the time of application is another eligibility requirement. The only thing there is that it would place you into, okay, honey. It would place you into the category of scholar if you already had a PhD or any kind of terminal degree. MFA does not quite count because that's still based on career level. But if you had a JD or something, then you would be in the scholar program. And then there are country-specific requirements. So sometimes they require that you have proficiency in the country's target language. Sometimes they require basic knowledge. Sometimes they require that you've taken a few classes. Sometimes there are additional letters of recommendation that you need. In China, it was just a letter of affiliation and your personal statement, statement of purpose, and your some kind of certification that you actually speak Chinese, done by a Chinese professor. So you can't have a friend evaluate you. It has to be somebody who is qualified as kind of an evaluator. Award program types. Our study and research grant, we have 950 plus awards. Those are always 8 to 10 months in around 140 countries. Mine was 10 months. And so that's another country specific thing. Sometimes it will vary per country. So often it was 10. I think in the East Asia region, in general, it was 10 months. There's the English teaching assistantship also. So you're helping to teach English and culture, US culture in the classroom. Again, it's ambassadorship through education, but it's more like you are there as a representative of the US and you happen to be teaching English, you're teaching English in the classroom, not so much like you're going there to be like, this is what America is. It's more like you're going there and you happen to be American and the exchange happens organically. So award benefits, round trip airfare, of course, that's covered. You have a monthly stipend that it varies, as it says here, per country, and the type of grant that you have. Scholars get paid more. You are all students. But what I found is that the stipend, while it may not be, who knows what it will be per space, it indexes to a very comfortable quality of life wherever you are. And so that is just determined by kind of what it costs to live there. It's the UK you'll have a lot more because you'll need a lot more. China, you might have less. Somewhere maybe like less developed, you would have less, but you're going to be good is basically my point. Of course, you get insurance. So one person actually had a very serious cancer incident that happened during their Fulbright. And because they had this insurance, they were flown off to Beijing and had amazing treatment and it was all handled. So things like that are good to know. And that's kind of an example of the extent of that insurance and the coverage. You're also always protected by the embassy. So if there are any issues there, you can WeChat them. Well, China was WeChat, WhatsApp, whatever the thing you use, or email them, but they're always there to keep you safe and to make sure that you're able to fully execute your project effectively. Other possible benefits, support for dependents if you bring those, research allowance if your project requires additional funding or support or equipment can happen. Probably not things like cameras or kilns for me, but there's, say you need to interview somebody and you need to get there and it's going to maybe be something that would challenge your quality of life. You can ask for things like that. Those are specific to the country again and the type of program, but you have a grant administrator per country and they're kind of like your point of contact and they're watching over you the whole time to make sure everything's good and checking in as well. Language lessons. So there was the Critical Language Enhancement Award. In China, if you had limited proficiency, you would go before your grant started. You would go like 4 months or so ahead of time and then really have an immersive Chinese language course and then start your grant. So it would be a little longer, 14 months or so. But by the end of that, your Chinese would be excellent. And that's another wonderful benefit to have. I would say enhancement activities fall in that category as well. And then also anything that's disability related, they're very much willing to apply accommodations to your grant and your specific life practice while you're there. Post-grant, the Fulbright network of alumni. Well, great. People, once you have done that, you have so much in common with a group of scholars who are deeply invested in their interests and their fields of study, and artists who will have done this. So I've met artists in LA who are like, oh, you had a Fulbright? I had a Fulbright. Oh, and then instant network. Okay. You also have the State Department's alumni website, which gives you access to $6 billion of grant opportunities. That's a lot of money. And so a lot of them are in the sciences because sciences get a lot of money, but always worth looking through and knowing that you have access to it. You also get a few cool subscriptions, like you get the Wall Street Journal for life for free, New York Times, stuff like that. Those are small things, but like fun, cool perks. It's once again, it really is like a stamp of approval on your life practice. It's not just like I make I make cute vessels and that's nice. It's like, yes, you do that and you're under the auspices of the State Department doing that. However, they also don't want you to be just making cute vessels. Like I make cups and bowls and I live and work in Venice, California. No. So it's none of that. It's not the romantic ideal of art. It's a deep investment in your whatever you're choosing to do as your art practice. And also having some record of that. It's not like we expect you to be showing at the Guggenheim. What we do expect is to at least a consistent portfolio that shows an investment in your work. And if you have an exhibition record, that's even stronger. But I didn't really. I was a graduating senior. I was like 22, so rare to have that. Lifetime Fulbright email address, of course, that's easy. Oh, actually, I didn't know about this. Eligible for 12 months of non-competitive eligibility hiring status within the federal government. That's a cool, fun new update. So I don't know much about that, but I think the language is pretty self-explanatory there. You can get a great government job if you want one. There's also the Fulbright Association. That's just the alumni network as well. And being a part of that, staying connected to the program and its benefits and kind of like being able to give back, like being here right now for me. Although I'm officially like a alumni ambassador, but that's part of the Fulbright Association. So your application components, basic personal data and program information, your abstract, really brief description of what you're going to be doing and really just descriptive. That's it. It's not talking about why or what it means or what it will do for your career. It's just like, what are you doing? Host country engagement, how you're going to be a part of that community, so you're not just kind of there. And then future plans. Where will this kind of start to take you? So these things are in the abstract is like just description, but everything else is kind of like, where do you see this going? But you don't have to flesh that out too much because you'll talk a lot more about that in your essays. So which include your statement of grant purpose. Now that kind of the format for that is sort of like an anecdote that says like, how did you get into this field of study? What made you want to do this? What keeps you in it? Is the kind of the next paragraph. And then beyond that, your preparations that you've taken. How do we know that you'll actually be able to execute this project? Actually, I just skipped one step. Well, how you got into it, the project that you're doing in a couple paragraphs, and why, and then preparations that you've taken to be able to execute this successfully. So that's why you get 2 pages, single spaced. You can't go beyond that. They won't read it or they'll disqualify you. So it's actually all the requirements are not flexible. They tell you exactly what it will be and exactly what it won't be. So that's that. Personal statement is what this means to you, where your personal interest in this country, this, again, your field of study, your specific medium, the things that you make, your concepts, your art. Is it expressing something about, your lived experience? Is it something, are you very interested in abstraction? Are you a performance artist who is wanting to develop their craft to be able to whatever? That's the next, the idea is understanding like what it means to you and what it means to your larger career trajectory. That's your personal statement. So it's pretty straightforward. 1 page. Sorry, the cat is very vocal. Really loves to be involved in Zoom calls. So those things are kind of I expect a few questions around that, and I'll offer any specifics that you might like to know more about there. Reports and references, foreign language evaluation, you'll have usually a professor in the department of your target language evaluate you. So I just had my Chinese teacher filled out the form. She's like, yes, you've been in my Chinese class for 3 years. You are good. Or if you haven't had that, then you might want to do something like reaching out to a university that does teach your language, target language, if you don't have it, or getting in touch with somebody in another department within your school to have them evaluate you. Campus committee evaluation, that's kind of, I think that's just behavioral. Like, do you know, are you going to like go to this country and not, you know, just be not behave, basically, yes or no. So that's that. Another thing that's important is transcripts. They just want to see your full academic history because it is an academic program. It falls under the State Department's specific academic programs branch. So we want to see everything you've done from every school you've attended and received credit for classes up to the point of your application. Your letter of affiliation. This is something that people ask a lot about and where there's a lot of confusion. So with your letter of affiliation, you are going to, it's basically saying that not only do you plan on doing this, but you have a place to do it and a place that's accepting you. It's a letter of invitation in a way. I wrote mine and then had it sent, had it signed by the professor. I think that's kind of like, you can do that with your letters of recommendation as well. But it's also better if you have somebody write them. But, you know, I always defer to whatever the person asks for. And, you know, if they agree with the what you wrote, great. Especially if you're asking for somebody from a different country and the target language is not English, you want your letter of recommendation. You might want to write that yourself. So I asked for a letter of recommendation from my professor at my study abroad program. And so he was like, could you write it, please? Because I don't want to write this in Chinese and translate it and all that. And so, yes, of course. The other thing was my letter of affiliation came from my connections from study abroad prior to my Fulbright application. So it was easy to be able to find somebody who was able to host me because I just talked to my professor and I was like, well, is this gonna, I really want to do this grant. I really want to come back to China. I would love to continue studying and developing, continuing in the directions that we started during my study abroad program just a year before. Is there somebody that you know at the China Academy of Art who could help me with this? Or could you help me with this? Or, you know, so it's just reaching out. And sometimes if you don't have that connection, it could just be a lot of cold emailing and all you need is one response. And it's a formality, but it's an important formality that says like, yes, not only are you going to do this, but you actually, it's feasible. They want you there. They have, they're going to be able to help you carry this out and they support your project that you're going to be doing there. And supplementary materials that's just your portfolio and sometimes a description of the images submitted. So I think it's 20 images, 20 of your best images. I think it's best to not, to present variety. One angle of one thing is probably better than 5 angles of 4 works. So keep that in mind. Build your portfolio with this in mind as well. And often in the arts, I mean, it's not the same as what galleries look for. It's still as an academic program. So galleries, you know, it's expression, culture, relevance to the moment, the human condition, art history, contemporary art history, life today. What does it look like in context with art history that has been representative of life today? Not the same with this. It's like your skill level, like your understanding of what you're doing. Does everything make sense? Do the inputs and outputs of your work align? Like I was envisioning this and this is what I made and they're the same. We want that that cohesion. We want that clarity. It actually, I'm not saying that they support or are encouraging you to make academic art, but when we think about what academic art is versus contemporary art, we want to be able to impress the people who are evaluating you based on kind of academic art standards. But contemporary art, of course, is also an intellectual endeavor. So as you will, approach it, but keep those things in mind. Factors in selection, so quality and feasibility of the proposal. Can you actually do it? And is it interesting? Is it new? Is Is it something that can only be done in that host country, host institution? Why do you want to study in Morocco? Why do you want to study in, weaving in Russia? Like, why do you want to study glass in Murano? Well, that's easy, right? But something like that. And, when you have a really specific reason for going, you have a really strong application that you can start to write around that reason. Academic or professional record, those are factors. Again, everybody loves that 4.0, sure. But if you have, not 4.0 and it's in things that either are have a reasonable explanation or are outside of your area of study or area of focus for your project, doesn't matter. Personal qualifications. Who are you? Are you going to be a good ambassador for the US that represents us in the most positive light? That's a little bit of those behavioral things or things like that, but also that's a small thing. I mean, people don't often have a lot of things on their record unless you probably did something as a freshman. I don't know, but there's always those elements that are considered as part of your application. Do you have a background that would make you a strong ambassador for that space? I talked about my own, I'm half Black, half Japanese. I talked about my own Asian American experience with relation to being able to understand, at least at a very base level, the kind of cultural niceties of engaging with a primarily Asian country. So, an almost entirely Asian country. Things like that are helpful. So you can talk about your own cultural background, your own experiences that you've had that have prepared you for this professionally or educationally or personally. Preference factors as established by Foreign Fulbright Scholarship Board. Again, those are the things that are specific to countries, but also when I talked a little bit about critical countries that have critical languages or countries that are considered critical allies, critical nations that we really want people going to have a strongly established positive presence in, well, that's another thing that they consider. So going to the UK, cool, but we're good. Going to China, very different, tenuous relations, not that much exchange since it's only been open since 1984 to foreign countries, especially the West. I mostly speak to China because that was my experience, but think of these things broadly and as just examples. The extent to which the candidate and the project will help to advance the Fulbright program goals. Again, are you doing something novel that is aligned with what the Fulbright program is, but also shows us, something that is unique to you and unique to the experience of mutual exchange that we want to be promoting in these target countries? And then, of course, requirements of the program in the individual. Have you done everything? Yes or no? The answer is yes, of course. So, application timeline, April through September. Figure out what you want to do. Your campus deadline will probably be in September. I would start as early as you can. Again, design the project and prepare the application. I would write it. What I did was I wrote it over the summer. I reviewed it by the end of the summer a couple times. I had a couple people whose opinion I trusted read it. And then I started sending it to the Fulbright, or actually the Fellowships and Prizes advisor during that, I think during the summer, toward the end of the summer, because they're there all the time. They don't really get summer breaks. They're staff, not faculty, so they're just there. And so there's that's kind of what I would recommend. And they also really, really want you to succeed because it looks good for them too. So they get a little invested. Campus deadline, of course, that's per institution. And what is your campus deadline? Do you have one?
That's a really good question, Alex. Or Jessica, I saw you unmute.
We have talked a couple of times about setting up a campus committee, but we don't officially have one as of yet. So we don't officially have a campus deadline.
Okay.
Maybe stay tuned. There might be one in the future, but not right now.
Okay. I just wanted to, in case there was one, I wanted to make sure everyone heard it. But I'm sure that if there is one, it will, you will all know.
And that may be a question too. Let me just say really quickly. So Britt is on this call, and Britt is the student Fulbright advisor. So if students have questions about those specifics, they can direct those to Britt in the future. Yeah, I don't know, because it's not up to me. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Cool. Yeah.
I'll shut up now.
No, you're great. This is all good to know. And that's I'm sure Britt will have all the answers. So
I would thank you, Alex. That's a lot of confidence. But basically, if you do want to apply, just let me know and I will help you with that process.
wonderful. Okay. US review, national screening committees. Okay, so your application then gets pushed forward. So there's one step in here that actually isn't listed, and that is the internal institutional review, where they will score you based. It's like I think it's 0, 1, 2. If you want to get specific, it's like basically not going to happen. Seems fine, but like I don't know, or like very strong. And then also often if there's that kind of review process that goes to the National Screening Committee, your Fellowships and Prizes Advisor will also help you to tailor that application and maybe even your presentation of your materials if you have an interview to get you closer to the strongest internal review score that you can get. Then it goes to national screening committees. Which is kind of the US review and the host country review are similar processes. So you're going to be evaluated only by people who are experts in your field. So, and that means not art at large. That means if you're a painter, you're getting reviewed by painters. If you're a weaver, you're getting reviewed by weavers. It's not like if you're in craft, you're getting reviewed by craft either. If you're in ceramics, you're reviewed by ceramics professionals. If you're in video, you're reviewed by video artists. You get it. So same thing happens in the host country, and they're like, well, you guys might think this is good. Do we think it's good? And then that's next. Then they decide. So it's like, this is why the US pushes those certain applications forward that they think are strong. Then the host country reviews them and says, yes or no. Do we think they're strong? Do we agree? And if they do, then great. Next, final selection, March through June. Basically, it's just more thinking about based on all these levels of filtering. US says yes to certain people. The host country says yes or no to certain people. And then final selection is based on those recommendations. And then you get it, hopefully. And this is really all of our information that has everything else you might like to know. Email us at fulbrightstudent@iie.org. That's the general inbox. If you have specific questions for China, ceramics, art, or anything from this presentation, you can email. This is my normal email address. So you can email me here, alex@alexanderson.us. You can go just Google Fulbright US Student Program. Make sure that when you do that, it says student program, because there are a lot of different Fulbrights that you can have. And so we want to make sure that you're getting the information that's specific to the program you're applying for. So when you do Fulbright US Student Program, don't just search Fulbright. There's like a Fulbright National Geographic. There's a lot of different ones. So make sure you're getting the information for your specific program. And that was a whirlwind of information in 39 minutes. So I'd love to answer any questions I can for anybody that might have come up during this presentation.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Alex.
A pleasure. Thank you.
And I love your cat.
He's a lot. His name's Enzo.
Fantastic. I'm so glad Enzo could be with us. I wonder if Dan, Susan, Jocelyn, Zach, Carter, do any of you have questions about this, about what you're thinking about for your application potentially? Or feel free to write it in the chat too, if you'd like.
Something in the chat.
Yes, Jessica was mentioning.
That was me.
Yes.
I've volunteered to review a couple of times. I review Fulbrights coming the other way, applications coming from the UK.
Oh, cool. Wonderful. I'm not seeing the chat, so if any questions are in there, maybe someone can read them.
I will for sure read them. I'm not seeing any come in yet. I wonder if Oh,
So
go
one
ahead.
question that students may have is that we don't, unfortunately, we used to have two language programs, Japanese and French, but over the past few years, they've been discontinued. And so our students may have studied foreign languages in high school. They can also take classes at McAllister for free. But can you just say a word or two? I know that not all of the programs require a foreign language. Is that right, Alex?
That's correct. Yes. So, of course, English-speaking countries don't require a foreign language, but also, if you're going to a country that's like really, really hard to have that, like to learn that language, we would require just some kind of preparation, but not like fluency. Like, where do you learn Urdu? Well, you can learn it at UPenn actually, but like, you know, it's uncommon, right? So where does one go? Those are what it really requires is some preparation. Maybe you took some classes. We just want to see that you're doing your best. And but countries like, you know, if it's French, if it's Spanish, you better be really good, because it's not honest, like to be slightly insensitive, those are not that hard, and they're commonly taught. So if you have those a country like that, then you want to have like strong fluency. I'm seeing the chat now.
Oh, you do see it. Okay.
Yeah, it popped up when they went in, so thank you. So are recently graduated MFA students able to apply for a student Fulbright? Yes, you are. That is the category for you. Yes. How challenging is it to bring a family on a Fulbright program experience? Well, I don't know, because I didn't have a family then. But I can say that what the program offers is dependent support that is, again, aligned with a very comfortable standard of living. So there's your stipend, and there's the addition for your dependents, which could be kids or spouses.
Not every country offers dependent support, but most of them do. Yeah, I've done two. I was in the UK for my second one. I took my entire family, including my husband and two kids, who enrolled in school and etc. It's actually a lot easier than you think. And the local Fulbright commission is very helpful in terms of helping you organize visas for everybody and kind of facilitating that process. And I can answer more. Dan, if you have specific questions, feel free to get in touch with me, because I did that just 2 years ago.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you have that information, because it's very outside of my experience, but it sounds like all the things that they say, as being like supportive options it sounds like they work. So that's what I understand, is the supports are there. I don't know what they look like, but yes, thank you for that so much. Great. I'm interested in Iceland. That said, I do not have a specific contact there. What is the best way to reach out to an institution or professor there? Find the schools that are probably excelling in what you're doing. So Jingdejun Ceramic Institute. Well, easy for me, right? It's in the name. I'd have to, sorry, it's like, pay attention to me. You'd have to know what the, your project is going to be. And then I would focus on, you can even look at rankings. That's kind of what I would do. What's the best school for ceramics or painting or weaving or dance, piano, whatever your discipline is. And then reach out to professors there. I would reach out to all of them just to see whoever responds. All you don't need the chair, a professor versus an assistant professor. Nobody cares. You just need something that it's it's a formality. It's like, well, did somebody say yes and sign your document? Great. and no one will ever know. It might feel good to be like, oh, I got the chair, but no, it doesn't matter. Sorry if this was already covered. Oh, here. Might be helpful to talk to folks at light gray. Oh, okay, you got that. That's an answer. Perfect. Sorry if this is already covered. I came into the presentation a little late, but what countries can we study in? And are we allowed to find work in the country while on a Fulbright program? So two great questions. One, you can apply to, if there's a Fulbright in any country that is allied with the US. So not North Korea. Not Cuba, and somewhere that's safe to go, that's not having major genocide, crises, things like that. You probably still can't go to Afghanistan, things like that. But otherwise, if it's an allied country and we're good and it's safe to be there, then you're good. You can go there. And even if it's uncommon, if you're the one person going to Malta, that's fine. That's still okay. And that might even be stronger for you because we need representation in as many places as we can get it. So that may be to your benefit, actually. And then, are you able to find work? No. No. You are also able to apply for a Fulbright if you already have received governmental fellowships. You cannot have a concurrent government fellowship with your Fulbright. So, and also you can't have another fellowship. You can't have for Asia, you can't have a Luce and a Fulbright. You can't have a Rhodes Scholarship and a Fulbright. You can't have well, I don't know what else, you get it. But you cannot work. People do, but you're not supposed to. And it's not, from my perspective, it's not worth sacrificing an entire lifetime of benefits for a little more money if you want to just like ball out in a country that it's not worth it. You're already good, is generally what I would say. It's a tiny country. There's probably just a couple. Susan, is that a question? Is that a question?
I think that was about Iceland.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
What types of references would be most appealing to the reviewers? Are mostly academic references recommended? Professors, directors? Yes. But also, again, it's the people who are most familiar with your work. Often it will be your professors, though, and a professor who you've worked most closely with, who knows about you, might even be a bit invested in your trajectory, is best. Do you get any university you choose? Do you mean, is the question, do you get to choose the university of your affiliation?
Yeah, that's the question. Like, is there a budget limit for the tuition for the university?
That's not really. They cover that, and so I think I don't know what my tuition was because I never heard about it. They just did it, and so that was that. You are required also to audit classes at your host institution. So that's where I studied ink painting. I was like, what is this school known for? Because I went to do ceramics, but I was like, what is their thing? It's the #1 art school in China, but like, what's their #1 program within that? Ink painting. So that's why I studied ink painting, because it was a class that I audited as their specialty, but I was still focused on ceramics there. But you can choose any university in the host country. Like if you were coming to the US and you wanted to study ceramics, like you could have an affiliate at any university. There's Alfred University in New York is the #1 ceramics program, but you could also just get a professor at like UCLA that says like, sure. You'd have to be in LA, but you get the point. It's
I get your point, but actually no, it's different when you come to the US. You have to make a list of university, and then they choose for you the university you get based on.
Where the reverse is, take my metaphor and apply it to the reverse.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to make sure, like for the outside countries, it's different.
Totally, it's whatever you want. I would say whoever takes you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who it is, like the person, and it doesn't, or their level, or their title, or even the school, as long as it is accredited and in the host city or your target city.
Those are all really good questions.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Any other? Oh, that's nice. Zach's got a couple there. Alex?
Let's see. I see. Oh, here. Thank you. 2 more questions. I'm an illustration major. That would mean a panel of illustrators would review my submission, and is housing handled by the program or us? Yes, a panel of illustrators would review your submission. Housing is, you find housing, but that's part of your stipend. So that's a consideration in how much they give you per country. But language fluency really becomes helpful when you're looking for housing. Reading rental contracts in Chinese was a learning experience.
Anyone else?
Anything else?
Okay. Well, Alex, this was terrific. Thank you. That was
Thank
so
you for
great.
having me. It was fun.
Yeah, you bet. All right. Well, thanks everyone for attending today, and have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. And if folks have follow-up questions, obviously you can contact Alex. And Alex, I want to second that. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Feel free to also contact Britt Nelson here at MCAD. Britt, if you feel like it, could you put your email maybe in the chat? And I'll go ahead and put my email. So I'm Jessica Dandona. If you guys don't know me, I'm a professor in liberal arts, and I've done 2 Fulbrights. I also serve on the local chapter of the Fulbright Association, which serves alumni and grantees. So I can answer kind of informal questions, and Britt and I together are happy to help with applications. And we thank you so much for making time to come and do this today, Alex. And the cat was a wonderful bonus. Thank you.
Every time I teach on Zoom every day, and I'm like, my students know my cat as well as me now, because he just like won't.
We all need cats right now in this moment.
We really do.
Yes. Thank you again. Thank you so much.
My
Thanks,
pleasure.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.